Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year. We're going to take a little bit of a break from our previously recorded and planned out release schedule for our blasters and our back catalog to review something that I've been very excited about ever since I caught my eye a few months back, and that is the Game Face Trion. Yes, I'm excited. We've got one in the studio. We're gonna open it up, test it out, put it through its paces, go over the compatibility, get to go over everything that we can about this blaster. We'll even talk about some upgrades that we're gonna be planning out for printing and different things like that for this blaster in the next video. So let's go ahead and start with unboxing this thing and looking at what kind of claims they have on. So what you want to look at here, like I said, this is from a company named Game Face. They made blasters and they licensed blasters a few years back, but this is kind of like their first kind of original design. And I think you'll kind of notice that it is a very similar looking blaster to like the Nexus Pro. It's kind of like that Springer buffer tube primary blaster. So right off the bat, there's going to be a group of people like, oh, another Springer, but hear this out, because this company has taken some of our criticism and put it into their product to make this, push the products, this type of blaster, this platform, this style, whatever you want to call it, to push it forward and give us some really great creature comforts, to give us some really good features, and just all around, it's really kind of exciting to see that people aren't just making the same exact blaster over and over again, just different colors, different reskins, whatever. They're actually looking at and assuming, based on how this review goes and all that, it looks like they are taking some of our criticisms and making noticeable changes in the product. So this is a great first blaster for them. As kind of a relaunch, I guess you'd call it a relaunch. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the box here. So you got a great picture of the actual blaster itself, mag fed, pump action. Looks like you got some Picatinny, some M-lock, which is awesome. We'll talk about some of the other features here, but let's go ahead and look here. So you've got the Trion competition blaster. Let's see here, engineered for all-out action, customizable for competition. Let's see here, stock up to 130 feet per second, super stock up to 160 feet per second, and then it also says ultra stock up to 200 feet per second. It includes 15 half-length darts. Looks like they've got some of their own designs or whatever. It's age 14 plus. Is there any other... doesn't look like there's any other claims on the box. So let's go ahead and flip it over so you get a nice view of that same picture. It gives you an idea of what it looks like. I'm not sure what a locking foregrip is. I wonder if that means it doesn't, if you tilt the blaster up and let go of the grip, if the priming handle drops down a little bit. I'm not sure what locking foregrip means. That'll be interesting to see. This is a short dart blaster only. It does not fire full length darts like the Nexus Pro and the Max Striker. So that is something that it's got going for it. I think at this point, if you're shooting at these types of velocities, long darts really aren't, full length darts aren't really, kind of, not, I don't want to say viable, but aren't really the ammo of choice for this type of audience. So seeing that it's just strictly short darts, we should see some improvement, whether that's just loading or, just general mechanics of this blaster, because it doesn't have to, the manufacturer doesn't have to take into account, okay, are they going to be using short darts or long darts? We got to make sure that we have the, the pusher pull all the way back so you can make sure that it's getting enough room in there for long darts. I digress. So let's go ahead. They got more. Okay, so here's how they're achieving this. Looks like they've got a couple spacers in here that looks like it's accessible through the back bumper tube. Okay, so it kind of works like the Nexus and the Max Striker. Here's kind of like a blown out view. Let's take a look. So you do get, when you open this up, you do get a nice kind of view of the blaster itself. It just looks really, really sharp. Yeah, this looks nice. All right, let's, oh, wow. Check out those warning labels. Boom, warning, warning. Holy smokes. Oh, not a toy. Do not shoot in the face or eyes. Wear eye protection to prevent serious injury to the eye. The eye. May be dangerous up to 100 yards? What? No way. Dangerous up to 100 yards. Come on, really? 100 yards? 100 feet? Maybe. 100 yards? I'm gonna take this out on a football field and see if I can hit somebody from end zone to end zone. All right, so. All right, so let's see. So you've got the blaster itself. There's the stock. We've got some type of muzzle brake. It doesn't look like it's a scar barrel. It looks like it's just an orange tip, which it has an orange tip on it already. Ooh, it's got like a, let's get it out of here. It looks like it's got a, kind of like a screw on. It's not friction fit, which is interesting. Let's do it this way. All right. Ooh, she is nice. Whew. Fire, safety. That prime is smooth. Wow. It's really smooth. All right, so let's take a look at what let's see what we're looking at here. So starting up at the front here. So yeah, it looks like the muzzle brake is not in any way scarred, or it's like a scar barrel or anything like that. It's not. It doesn't have any type of spin or bearing system on there or anything like that. The nice thing is it looks like it's fairly large, so like your darts aren't going to hit it on the way out, and it's short enough that it seems like it's just added like orange tip. So it does have, looks like a quarter turn. Yeah, it's like a, no, it's half, it looks like it's a half turn. So you got that. You do have orange tip on the front, so you don't technically have to do this. I think Out of Darts has already created a scar barrel to work on this tip, so that's not that big of a deal. Looks like you do have access. The barrel does protrude out. That this is looks more of like a center. Yeah, it looks more of like a centering lug nut than anything. We do have, in fact, have 5 M-lock inserts here, so that's nice. That's visible on both sides. You've got this angle grip, foregrip, pump grip, I guess is what you want to call it. Moving back, looks like we have a skinny pusher, which is nice. So that means you can take your magazine and you can load it without having to prime the actual grip, the blaster, and you can deprime it as well. So you have your paddle release here, which is awesome. So you'll no longer, like the Nexus or Striker, before modification, obviously, slide it in and out without having to prime it. So that's fantastic. I really like that. Looks like you do have a little bit of a flared mag well, which is nice. So it's not like the Nexus or the Striker where you literally have to be dead on. This has got, you know, a pretty good flare, which is nice, and actually both ways. Not too bad at all. I like that. That's nice. Very, very nice. So what else do we got here? So we've got the skinny pusher. We've got small short darts only magwell. We've got Picatinny rail all the way across the top. No step down, just straight flush, which is awesome. We've got our trigger here. Kind of clicky. Very short pull, kind of like a hair trigger almost. It's kind of a heavy pull, but it's not going very far. Let's see. It doesn't go very far. The one thing that you'll notice, I don't know if you can pick this up on the camera up above, it's not a traditional Nerf or foam trigger. It's not sliding like all, I don't want to say all, most Nerf triggers are on a slide system, so the whole trigger goes this way parallel. This is on like a rocker almost, where kind of like a real steel airsoft trigger. That's really cool. You got a safety, fire safety on this right here, which is nice. This is cool. So you've got your kind of a thumb hole stock, a very comfortable looking handle. Your detent for your buffer tube or stock is on one side, so not ambidextrous. Looks like you have four different lengths, which is nice. The other thing that I'm really digging is this 2-point system right here with like the Nexus Pro and the Max Striker. Heck, with most of the buffer tube stocks that came out last year, and the Tomcat has a huge problem with this, since it has the in-strike attachment, stock attachment point, is the flex and stuff like that, and the creaking. This does not creak, and I wonder if that's due to because it's got this 2-point attachment, so you don't just have the buffer tube and that's it. You've got the buffer tube and the handle, and it's kind of like distributing that weight of whether you're priming it or holding it, whatever you're doing, shouldering it, it's got the weight distributed both here and at the handle. That's fantastic. You know, originally I had thought about getting a different handle and a different stock, but to be honest with you, I really dig that. Oh, that's really cool. I wonder if they make aftermarket stocks that are like this, that meet up, because this is I think this is a standardized handle. If the other reviews are to be trusted, this is a standard handle. I wonder if I'll have to look that up, but nevertheless, that's a nice looking stock. I like that. As far as like functionality goes, that's amazing. It does come all the way off, and here's where our spring is. Make sure we're deprimed, so you open that up, and so there's our spring and our really long spring guide, and then toolless, which is nice. So while with like the Nexus Pro, it had the screw, you really didn't need the screw, but this is nice because it literally has these two locking mechanisms right here. So a little bit added peace of mind, knowing that your spring is not going to come flying out the back of your blaster. That's nice. That's solid. It's not going anywhere. Either way, that way or that way. Looks like we have a nice loop right here built into the plastic. You've got a screw on each side, so it's not, you know, unlikely to break, which is nice. So nice and, I guess you could also, if you wanted to, put a loop through here. You've got a couple different options as far as that is concerned. If you wanted to add like some type of sling mount, you could put your loop through there. That's awesome. Really digging that. You have, looks like some type of unjamming button right here on the left-hand side, not ambidextrous, so keeps this side nice and clean, which is nice. Trion right there. You got paint on both sides, which is awesome. Man, I'm really digging it. I'm really digging it. Let's see here. So we've got some iron sights, which is nice, or plastic sights rather. So they want, I could never remember which ones go where. So I think this one yeah, that one goes in the back. This one goes in the front, something like that. Is that how they have it pictured? That is in fact how they have it pictured. Now that is low profile. So you're not really gonna be able to get, look down iron sights quite. I guess you could do one of those, but for war purposes, I've never really used these. I've more or less kind of got a cheapo red dot, and that's kind of what I've gone with. I even put the red dot up on a 3D print riser so that it's higher up, because when you're wearing a face mask or even goggles, you want to be able to be somewhere up in here, and you don't want to be down like that. So, wow, that's really nice. I'm digging that. That blue is just sharp. Look how nice that looks, man. Even the looks like you have some type of like color treatment to the inside barrel. I'm looking forward to getting this opened up. I really am. So the spring spacers look to be identical. So all you do is you pull this off, undo this, and you can do one spring. I guess this is the, what is it? So without a spring spacer should be 130. This should be 160, and then this should be 200. And then you literally just put it in like that and twist down. So you got your notch that's pointing down. And then slide this back on. Wow, that's nice. Man, that's got, yeah, 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 4. That's nice. What's the prime like? I mean, nothing worse than like with the Nexus Pro spring spacers from Out of Darts. Like, that's not. I like it, guys. I like it a lot. Looking forward to getting this over the chronograph, and we'll take it down range and stuff like that. Now, like I said, I only got the 15 of these darts, so let's. I'm just gonna shoot 2 because I want to save these as much as possible, so we're not reusing them, because that's one of the things with our testing is we use brand new darts every time. All right, so that goes in like that, and we pull back, prime. Whew. Okay, so this is no spring spacers, just the spring itself. Whew! She fires nice. She fires good. Love it. These magazines are awesome. I like that. I can actually use this. I'm a worker fanboy when it comes to the Talon magazines, but this is nice. It's nice and sturdy. Doesn't have a rubber bottom or anything like that, but I mean the worker ones don't either. But this is nice. It's got a clear side, so you can see right through it and see your ammo inside. That's nice. Let's take a look at the ammo real quick. Just real quick. As far as height goes, ooh, they're a little bit shorter. They're solid foam though. I mean, it feels like the foam that is used with the worker darts. It feels a lot like it. And it's got a nice little chevron on the tip, so that's why we'll call them chevron darts. That's nice. I like that. Can't tell. I'll have to we'll break the scale out once we get some shots down range and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's the Trion. Let's take it out on the range and put it over the chronograph and take a look and see how she's firing. We'll use the spacers and all that stuff, get you guys all those numbers, and give you our final thoughts afterwards. Let's go take it out. So fresh 15. Next up, we have the Dart Zone Ruby darts. We are at 60 feet with 2 spring spacers. have the Worker Gen 3 dart. This is the Trion stock spring, 2 spring spacers, 60 feet. Last up, we have the Dart Zone bamboo darts. This is a stock spring Trion with the 2 spring spacers at 60 feet. Alright guys, we are back in from the range with our Game Face Trion, and let me tell you, this blaster is a lot of fun. We'll talk more about it in my like final thoughts and things like that, but it's just such smooth, such a great blaster. I had a lot of fun using it on the out on the range and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and jump into our testing results. We got the FPS readings. We've also got some range tests with the various types of ammo and the various different spring spacers and things like that. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual FPS. And wouldn't you know it, the bamboo darts came out on top. Across the entire run of our feet per second and chronograph readings, the high was 181.8. We were looking at a low of 146.4, averaging out to just over 160. And man, that standard deviation of 9.9, let me tell you, the bamboo darts tend to be one of the higher end, not always the highest, but in the mid to higher end of the standard deviation charts. So to see this not only lower than some of the like the Nexus Pro and some of the other predecessor springers in this class, but to beat out like the Worker darts, which are usually pretty consistent, is really amazing. So like this is probably one of the first times a blaster has kind of taken all 4 spots, you know, the high, the low, the average, and the standard deviation by such a large margin. And even just stock, no spring spacers, this thing is hitting really, really hard. And you know, it's on par with the other blasters that are in its class. But that standard deviation just really has me kind of stuck and just like, wow, that is, you know, below, you know, it's 9.9, so, you know, 1 point higher and you're at 10, but still single point standard deviation is always something to look forward to and look at as a, you know, kind of a badge of honor, so to speak, especially when we're talking about, you know, foam blasters. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention too, and I called out the Tomcat, and I know that video hasn't posted yet, but I called it the Tomcat because it had such horrible standard deviation, and it was one of those things where it's like, man, there's got to be something wrong with this blaster, and I have to call this one out as well. You know, there's definitely something going on where, you know, the standard deviation in the 15 range for some of these darts is just a little insane. And like, the thing is, let me kind of show you. Let me get these spacers out of here real quick so I don't break anything. Let me kind of show you something that I found, and I don't know if this is true across multiple game Trions. So, you know, in the comment section below, you'll have to tell me if yours does this as well. But listen to this. I've got a microphone just off camera here. Listen to this. So I'm going to prime it back, push it all the way forward. I'm going to plug the end of the blaster up, and then I'm going to put this up to the microphone. You tell me if you can hear this. Ready? Can you hear that? Like, it's it's not air leaking from this end of the blaster, it's air leaking from somewhere in the like kind of the staging area. So there's definitely something going on when it comes to the dart gate and like kind of like the staging area, because they've got again kind of like the dart zone striker and the Tomcat and the Nexus. There's like this plastic gate that kind of the dart feeds into, and then it goes into the metal barrel once you fire it. Somewhere in between there, there's not a good seal, and we're losing air pressure substantially faster than most of the other blasters. So when we go to do the mod guide video and kind of the upgrade video, that's something that we're definitely going to be looking at and seeing as, you know, it's a pretty easy upgrade or a pretty easy fix. I don't expect it to be I don't expect it to take that much time or that much effort, you know, to fix that issue. So something to be aware of. Like I said, I'm not sure if other people are experiencing that, but I'd love to hear in the comments if yours does this. Let me know. If it's not, then I'll know that this is a lemon and I should probably return it and get a different one. So anyway, that aside, let's kind of look at let's kind of compare some of the stats. I really didn't want to get too much into it, but because we're going to be having another video going over the different blasters, you know, comparatively to like the striker and the Nexus and things like that. So, you know, the sad part about the deviation when it comes to this blaster is when it comes to HVZ. You know, while the highs are going over 150, even with no spring spacers, no additional spring, nothing like that, it's literally just stock. At its lowest performance, it's well over that 150 average that you mostly see HVZ users or game runners, you know, hitting. Now, again, like I say this in all the videos, you need to check with your game organizer to see if it's an average that has to be below, or if it's any of your shots have to be below that mark. Because there's a huge difference there, you know. And if you look at, like, you know, the Worker Gen 3, or I'm sorry, the Ember Pro darts, they were 153. So technically, you wouldn't be able to use that. The highest out of those 20 shots from a brand new dart from Ember, from the Adventure Force Ember darts, you know, 153 was the highest. So if the game organizer is going off of any dart going over 150, this is classified as illegal and you can't use it. Now, if they're going off the average, on the other hand, so 20 dart average, which is possible, that's what we use at our events, you can use quite a few of these. You could use the Worker Gen 3, you can use the AF Pro, you can use the Ruby darts. Now, the bamboo darts, that's another story. You know, even at the low, on the average, you're at 163, so no, can't use the bamboo darts. So, but if you look at the, you know, where it kind of stacks up versus the Nexus Pro and the Dart Zone Striker, you'll see that it, you know, as far as stock performance goes, it's kind of hitting the same amount. I mean, obviously, you know, the bamboo darts are kind of taking the lead here when it comes to like the highs, the lows, and the mediums, but like, you know, the Max Striker only having a 6.5 standard deviation, that thing loves those darts, absolutely loves them. But again, the high is 195 and the average is 174. So it's even more so out of range for HVZ goers. So you're going to have to use some type of tuning cap like that Out of Darts makes to tune that back, you know, to the 100 to 150 range, which isn't that hard to do because it has this amazing, you know, buffer tube stock that is super easy to get to. And that's something that, you know, people will need to, you know, you'll have to come up with a different way to extend this out, because it's not like the short stubby one like the Nexus Pro or the Striker have, but it's still easily doable, and by most accounts much more accessible than like the Dictator or than like the Tomcat or something where you have to take the whole thing apart to work within it. So this is, you know, by far a league above those, even though, you know, HVZ goers are going to be, you know, kind of at a loss because it's clearly hitting harder than 150 speed. So next up, let's look at the comparison between the one spacer, from the stock to the one spacer to the two spacer results. And this is kind of telling. This is really cool information, because this is the first blaster that I know of that comes in package ready to go right from the manufacturer to tune to exactly what you're looking for. You know, whether you're looking to, you know, close quarters, you know, run and gun type things, or if you're going to be adding 2 spacers and kind of being that, like, you know, shooting from a distance, adding a scope or, you know, some type of red dot to kind of line your shots up and be a little bit more, you know, precise with it. So this is really cool. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So we already went over the stock, which is at the top there. The 1 spacer, which is the middle section there, still shows the bamboo darts are still taking the lead as far as you know, highs, lows, average, and standard deviation. The thing that stands out to me is even with the 1 spacer installed, you know, it brought our average up to 163. Or sorry, from 163 to 195. So you're looking, I mean, that is a huge increase. So you're looking at 32 points going up on the average, just on the average, and averaging at 195 is perfect for, you know, those 200 and under shots. And on top of that, 1 spacer puts you at a high of 224, or well, 225 if you round up. And that's still below kind of one of those major thresholds, 225 or 250. So it still kind of puts you below that threshold, whether they're going for, you know, what's your highest shot or what's your average across 20 shots. Again, standard deviation is another big win here, only going up to 10.5. And I know before I said anything above a 10 is kind of getting into that weird, that kind of gray territory. But if you look at going, you know, adding just a single spacer, the amount of FPS you gain, and we'll look at the precision and the accuracy here in a moment, but this 1 spacer gives you so much more performance and so much more reliability than stock. If you look at some of the other key metrics that I kind of want to point out here is the worker results with the single spacer, having a high going from 162 all the way up to 190, gaining 28 FPS right there on the high, the low going from 102 to 145. This is where you really kind of see that dart kind of gain some momentum, is not necessarily on the high end, but the low end coming up 43 points. And then you're looking at, you know, going from a standard deviation of 15 and going down to 13. So the deviation got better with the spring spacer. I mean, that's still margin of error. But again, you know, having that average, you know, kick up 29 points because the low end is getting higher and you're not kind of throwing this dart super fast. You're just kind of equaling things out with that single spacer. And I find that that's really, you know, worth noting. And then we go down to the 2 spring spacers, and there's really, you're starting to get diminishing returns at this point. So like if we look at, you know, again, our bamboo darts perform the best. You look at the highs, you know, going from 224 to 232, you know, you're not really gaining a lot there. And when we look at the range results, you'll also notice that we didn't gain very much there. The average going up from 195 to 218, again, you're not really gaining that much. You're, you know, going past that 200 threshold, which might, you know, be in contention for some game types and some fields. But again, the standard deviation going down even further than just stock no spacers to 7.5. Like, this thing just spits those bamboo darts out just nonstop, and when you look at the accuracy, you're going to be impressed as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just jump right into the accuracy. And starting out, first off, you know, based on the FPS results, I made a decision not to shoot this blaster at 30 feet. I just didn't think it was necessary. So we jumped right to the 45-foot mark, and we went with no spring spacer, just the stock spring. We even we left the barrel on, I believe, if memory serves correct. We left the barrel on because it's wide enough that it didn't seem like it was going to cause much of an issue. And you know, I didn't see any kind of issues with it hitting the barrel. It's not long enough to where I think it would have any type of bullet drag or dart drag. So looking at our results here, you know, 45 feet, the results kind of speak for themselves. The bamboo darts had the tightest grouping by far, with Worker Gen 3 coming in a pretty close second. And I kind of look at this in a sense that if I were to take, you know, from 45 feet, take a shot, and then if it's just outside that 2 foot target radius, like maybe inches, if I were to take 2, 3, 4 steps forward, that dart absolutely would have hit. So, you know, yes, it only hit 50% of the time with the worker darts, but there are so many darts around that very close perimeter. We're talking like less than 6 inches, and you know, you're hitting 1, 2, 3, 4 extra darts. You know, that's putting you close to the 80, 70 point range. But I mean, even if you look at the dart zone bamboo darts, you've got the same exact story right there. There's, you know, 1, 2, 3 that I can see right off the bat that are just outside, you know, inches away from that target. That if you were to take, you know, 2, 3 steps forward, you know, you're at 40 feet instead of 45, you're absolutely going to nail those. But again, the dart zone bamboo darts, I mean, without question, had a much tighter grouping, and you know, especially on the horizontal or the vertical scale, you know, being in line, there isn't anything going too crazy, too far out of that spread, and most of those darts are within that 2 to 3 foot radius. So again, awesome job. I do want to say after the 45 foot, I did back up to 60 feet stock without any spring spacers, and it was kind of shocking how quickly things fell apart. We shot both the ruby darts and the bamboo darts from 60 feet, and the bamboo darts hit the fence, and they weren't hitting the target. They were well below the target, but we didn't hit any targets. So 0% on the accuracy, but it was going the distance. As far as the ruby darts, they were falling about 5 feet short into the grass. So you're shooting straight at the target center mass, they would fall short about 5, 6, 7 feet somewhere in there into the grass or dirt, and it was shocking. It was like, wow, this is yeah, because if you go back and watch the Nexus video, or the Striker or the Tomcat or whatever coming up, you'll notice that 60 feet stock, those blasters are definitely hitting the target. Not a lot, not very often, but they're at least hitting it some percentage of the time. And I'm wondering if that air leakage from that dart gate is causing some of that issue. So we'll have to see. Stay tuned for the that upgrade video that we do. We'll do it probably a month or two later on down the road, but we'll see what kind of performance we gain. I bet you the 60 foot range stock, no spring spacer, I think that's probably where we're going to gain some momentum. So the next part here just kind of shows all the different darts together. This is at 45 feet, so you can kind of see everything together with all the percentages and stuff. So really not much to look at here. Just again, the worker darts did fairly well, but the bamboo darts clearly taking the lead, 80% across the board. Next up, so we backed up to 60 feet. After shooting stock, we went ahead and threw in a single spring spacer, and again, the bamboo darts, 80%, 60 feet without a problem. This thing is just shooting lasers. And one of the things that I notice is it's shooting these darts and there isn't much whirly birding, right? So you don't have like that tail. So, you know, and I said it during the shooting process, I was like, I don't know if a scar barrel is going to improve this, because they're already a pretty tight shot, right? Usually a scar barrel, what it'll have is it'll kind of impart some spin onto the dart, but it won't give you that kind of whirly bird where the head is, you know, kind of going straight and the tail is kind of wiggling, you know, kind of going around. You're gonna, with the scar barrel, you're looking at more of the dart as a whole is spinning, giving you a more accurate straight shot. So I don't know how much a scar barrel or a bar scar or whatever they call it with the bearings, I don't know how much that's going to improve the dart zone bamboo darts, but things like the worker darts, that's going to definitely tighten in that group. Hitting 30% across the board for worker and for the dart zone ruby darts. Obviously, like it's the same percentage, but if you look at the Ruby darts, I did feel like they had a slightly better grouping because it was a little bit tighter on the vertical side of things, whereas with the worker darts, that was kind of a wider spread. So 60 feet with a single spacer, I think you're better off going with the Dart Zone Ruby darts. But obviously, the king of the roost is the bamboo darts, without a doubt. The Ember darts just that's just a joke. 5%, like that's, I mean, they're all grouped together. So like if you adjust your, your sight up, adjust for that drop, then you should be okay. But why would you do that if you could have a higher performing dart, is in my opinion. So yeah, so stay away from the Ember darts if you're planning on using just one spring spacer. Again, here again is the kind of a look at all of the different darts from this range with the single spacer, just kind of solidifying the fact that the bamboo darts were kind of in a much tighter cluster. And the worker Gen 3s were kind of a more high spread, kind of going all over the place. You had one going way above, you had a few going kind of left to right. So, kind of one of those things where it's like, wow, they are all over the place. Next up, we went ahead and went full bore, dropped in the extra spring spacer, and whew, the FPS readings didn't kind of do it a lot of justice. It didn't seem like a big jump for a lot of the darts, but performance-wise, 80%, 60 feet for the bamboo darts. So there's really no difference between percentage-wise, there's no difference between one spacer and two spacers. I think you might see a little bit of difference if you go with with a sealed barrel. That upgrade video is gonna be very interesting. Seeing if these shots tighten up. I'm gonna do a little bit different upgrade video for this one. I think we'll do the scar barrel first and see if just adding a scar barrel, you don't even have to open up the thing and just put a scar on it, see if that tightens that group up. Because if you look at the bamboo darts, I mean, there's there's two shots that are probably about 6 inches out. There's another shot that went too high. That's about 8 to 10 inches, and then there's another one that went over the fence. So that was kind of, to be honest with you, I probably should have shot a new one. That probably was a bad dart. But getting that tighter circle in, I wonder if just the scar barrel itself will bring those 2 or 3 darts closer. And if not, then wrapping some tape, electrical tape, to kind of seal that breach up a little bit better, or that dart gate up a little bit better, might be the ticket to kind of group those a little bit better. Again, 55% for Worker Gen 3. This was a really good performer for Worker Gen 3. If you're going to shoot both of the springers, or the spring spacers, the Gen 3s are just kind of, they did some work. Both on the vertical and the horizontal side, they did some work. They just had a few darts that dropped short. And again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I bet you could count 5 of those darts, maybe 6, that are within that 6 to 8 inch ring just outside that 2-foot target. So scar barrel or some type of tape on that gate is going to improve that drastically. So yeah, the Ember darts kind of surprised me a little bit, but again, this is when you're looking at performance, FPS, and when you're looking at the range, accuracy, precision, you can't not say that the bamboo darts did not outperform these head over heels over all these other ones. Now the keen eye of you will notice that I did not talk about the chevron darts that came with the blaster itself. Now, I was dumb and did not order extra darts, or an extra magazine for that matter. But the 15 darts that it came with, I shot 2 during the intro, and I shot 10 different darts during the FPS reading. And if we go back to that slide, I used the 2 spring spacers because I wanted to see like what the top performing, quote unquote, top performing loadout would be with those darts. So I only shot 10, so I can't use this in like my like comparison. So this is just kind of like by itself. So with 2 spacers, the 10 of those darts, we shot a high of 256. So it outperformed all 4 of the other darts by quite a bit. The low was 175, so it was kind of middle of the road on the low. The average was running 206, so over that 200 feet, but not quite as high as the bamboo darts at 218. And then the standard deviation, 22.2. Come on, like come on. So, like I said, I only shot 10 through it. They were brand new. I didn't use the 2 that I'd shot in the intro. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably order a couple sets of these just so I have them on hand, and we'll run the test. I'll update the sheet. I'll update the Google sheet so you'll have the actual numbers and stuff like that. And, you know, again, a reminder, check the description box below for a link to the Google document that I have all of my results for all the blasters that I test, whether it's stock, whether it's, you know, an upgrade 1, upgrade 2, 3 upgrade, whatever it is. You get all 20 shots, you get the accuracy from 30, from 45, everything like that. It's just, it's a lot of information, but I feel like being transparent is very, very important. So when I get those darts, I will definitely update this. I'll update the description below with like kind of like a, you know, the link of like, hey, you know what, I went ahead and added the darts in, check the link below for the Google Doc, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, so performance wise, you know, FPS, they did pretty good, but standard deviation in my book is like, that's a no-go. Sorry, like I love the fact that you're hitting 256 on the high end, but, and just over 200 on the average, but that deviation of 22 is just, that's a little too much for my blood. And then we switch over, and again, I only had 15 darts, and I was like, you know what, I want to take this out on the range and see what kind of accuracy and what kind of precision we're getting. So keep in mind, this is not my normal. I don't normally shoot darts that have been used before, and my definition of used is, have they left the barrel, then it's used. So all of these darts have been used at least once. So I went ahead and 60 feet, 2 spacers, shot all 15. I hit 8, so 53%, not too bad. The problem that I saw was there's a few of them that dropped really short, which was kind of odd. They didn't even make it to the fence. And then they were just really wide, really wide. And I don't know if that's, again, from being shot out of the barrel and into my, you know, the dart catcher or whatever, or being shot into the floor over here from the intro. But yeah, again, I'll update the information once we get the darts in the mail, and let me know in the comments below, like, are these darts, you know, I really like the color of them because they're easy to spot. Is this something, you know, would you guys be interested in me dumping the Adventure Force Ember darts for the Chevron darts? Let me know in the comments. I'm kind of curious if that's something, because I don't want to add a 5th dart personally, but if that's something you guys would like to see, whatever, we'll do it. But to me, the Ember darts, they perform the weakest, and they're the hardest to recover because they're freaking gray. So testing them out just doesn't seem like, okay, yeah, they performed okay, but you won't buy them because the Ruby darts do about the same on average, and they're infinitely easier to find. So let me know in the comments if we should replace the Ember darts with the Game Face Chevron darts. Let me know. Okay, so let's talk about final performance testing, my final thoughts, and we'll get into some of my features and loadouts and stuff like that. So optimal range for this blaster, 100%, you want to be using the bamboo darts, without a doubt. You know, 40 feet is probably about a good distance for like a stock version of this with no spacers. So you're going to be looking at, you know, your FPS is at 163 and 181 on the high. So you want to make sure a couple different things, you know, like I said at the beginning, how is your game runners, what are they going off of? Are they going off an average? Are they going off your high FPS? And kind of go from there. So 40 feet is probably is about your optimal range. That's where you're hitting about 90% of your shots flat, right? This is aiming, this isn't giving you any type of arc or anything like that. 90%, 40 feet, you're gonna be hitting your target each and every time. Well, the 2-foot target is what I was aiming at, so keep that in mind. One spacer, bamboo, are still at 55 feet. You know, I dropped it down 5 feet to gain those extra couple points on the outside that just missed by inches. Your average FPS is 195 for the bamboo darts with that one spacer. So 32 points of FPS higher than stock. And then your high is 224. So that's where you can really kind of get into the, hey, we're hitting hard at 224 feet per second. And then 2 spacers, like I said before, you don't see a lot of benefit from going from 1 to 2 spacers. You know, bamboo is still the reason to shoot, you know, that with 2. You're still only going to get about 55 feet as your optimal range, but you're shooting average over the 200 range at 218, and your average is at 232. So you're only gaining on the high end less than 8 feet per second. So I'm not sure what the actual damage you're doing to the spring or the internals with having 2 spacers in, but personally, I don't think it's a viable option. We'll talk. Let's go ahead and talk about it now. So Drac came out with a 1.5 inch, 1.5 spacer. So one of the, I think these are 1 inch long. So, you know, 1.5 inches spacer that's 3D printed to put in there. I'm wondering if that is kind of like a key length, right? It gives you a bump in performance, and then adding the scar barrel to bring that performance, the FPS down just a little bit, but increase your accuracy. I'm willing to bet that that extra half of a spring spacer is kind of the sweet spot, right? Your diminishing returns start at 2, but if you go 1.5, I bet you that. I'm willing to bet, and I'll do some research and I'll print my own just for my testing purposes and for the video, for the upgrade video. But I bet you that is probably kind of like the sweet spot. Let's see here. Let's talk about the features that I enjoy, right? And there's quite a bit of them. So first off, this thing is solid. Like, this thing is solid. Super quiet, right? Super quiet. Don't have that good air seal like you just heard it kind of leaking, but not a lot of creaking when it comes to, you know, priming it. And to kind of compare, like here, listen to this. I will we'll put it up against this microphone and against my chest mic, but listen to priming. All you're hearing is the bearings going back and the catch locking in, right? And I've got my Nexus Pro. This is my tried and true. This, I love this blaster. Love it to death. It is I put it to my range, like that third stop. Listen to this, listen. You hear all that? Like, it is, that's a good seal, right? Because I've already modded it. I've already opened it up and sealed the barrel. So like you can tell the difference, right? Here's the difference. Dead silent, and then I'm gonna pull my finger out in 3, 2, 1, right? You know, that's a good seal. So I imagine that's the same thing, but listen, right? Like it's just, and this is the other thing that bugs me, is there's like a little bit of a catch there that it does not like. So again, super sturdy, super quiet. The one thing that I love about this blaster is this right here. Not many people talk about this. They don't, because they immediately jump on board like, hey, it's got a buffer tube style stock. That means we could take it off and put a different stock on. I don't think you want to. I really don't. I don't think you want to, because this has 2 points of attach point, 2 points of contact, I guess is what I would call it. You know, you've got a contact here and a contact here. That means when you're priming, right, against your shoulder, one-handed, that means all your prime weight isn't going from your shoulder to this buffer tube. It's getting dispersed between the buffer tube and the bottom of the handle. It's distributing that weight. And I love that. I think that's just such a cool feature. I don't feel like, you know, with my Nexus Pro, when I prime it, I feel like, oh, is this gonna be the time when the buffer tube snaps and my blaster is completely trashed? I don't feel that way. And you look at how many screws are in this stock, like there's a bunch of points of contact, you know, keeping everything together and sturdy. This is a sturdy blaster, even though it's super thin. I mean, look how thin it is, right? Look how thin that is. And you compare it to the Nexus Pro. Now I've got a rail on the side here, so just keep in mind, you know, there's the Nexus Pro, and right, side by side, right? Let's put them like side by side as close as possible, right? The Nexus Pro is probably about 1.5 times thicker. Like, it's not quite double, but it's definitely thicker. And I love it to death. Don't get me wrong. I love my Nexus Pro, but I think this might be taking its place. If we can fix that standard deviation in this air leak, I think we might have a winner. I mean, it's frustrating, so frustrating. Then the feature that I never thought I needed, but after having it now, a skinny pusher, right? This skinny pusher allows you to take your Talamags, allows you to take the really nice, I'm gonna order some of these because I like these, the really nice game face magazines, and just lock it in. It goes over top of the pusher. You don't have to prime the blaster. You don't have to worry about de-priming the blaster, or in the Nexus case, dry firing, because you have to mod the blaster to be able to dry fire it. You can't dry fire this blaster. In fact, it does something weird where if you pull the trigger now, and when I pull forward, it fires. That's super weird. I don't know if I like that. But having a skinny pusher was one of those features that I was always kind of like, I always kind of coughed at. I was like, huh, I don't need a skinny pusher like that. I don't need that. I've trained my mind to prime the blaster, put the magazine in, or prime the blaster, pull the magazine out. And let me tell you, putting this blaster through my firing procedures, it was just a relief. And I still found myself like priming it to pull the, you know, pulling it out, but, you know, pulling the magazine out. But it was one of those things where it was just like, oh yeah, I don't need to do that. It was just super nice. And you could tactically reload. So when you're on your last dart, you're on your last dart, you go ahead and prime it, pull that magazine out and stick a fresh one in. Now you've got 15 plus one in the chamber. You forgot the one in the chamber. So that's a feature that I am absolutely in love with. And I know it's kind of been a hobby grade upgrade for a long time, where people will put 3D printed pushers in their blasters like the Nexus Pro, the Max Striker, just to have that feature. And let me tell you, that's a good feature. Don't knock it until you try it. I am converted. The next feature I wasn't sure I was going to be a fan of, and that's the trigger. The most triggers on springers like this are a sliding trigger. So like when you pull the trigger on the Nexus Pro, you can see how it slides horizontally like this. It's because it's on a track, and it kind of compresses a spring, and the spring pushes it back when you let go of it. The Game Face Trion is a kind of a rotating one, more of like a real steel, where it rotates like this. It kind of pivots, and it's a hair trigger. Like, it does not take a lot there's not a lot of pull, and I like that. I liked it a lot. Performance tuning. This just needs to be a standard practice with a blaster like this. And I know, like, some blasters it's not going to be entirely possible, like the Dictator, but there's no reason the Tomcat could not have had this style of spring spacer setup or access to the spring. I don't know why they decided to put the Nerf attachment point on that blaster, especially with how it performed. It just felt like a disservice, and that might be just me be nitpicking, and I'm not heavily invested into that into that stock system. So it might not seem like a benefit to me, but it might be a benefit to you. But this is just being able to take this off, and even more adjustable than, not necessarily more adjustable, more accessible than the Nexus Pro. Just being able to toollessly take it out and put in a new one, right? Being able to switch it out in the middle of a day when you're transitioning from a sniper class to an assault class, and you don't want to have to buy an extra blaster. That's where it's going to save you the money. That's where I think is going to be like the benefit is, you know, hey, I'm going to start out using this as, you know, sniper class, whatever, and then, you know, you play a few rounds, like, all right, I'm ready to run and gun. Let's do this. You know, pull out the 2 spacers because you don't want to shoot anybody. You know, 250 feet per second. You know, close quarters. That's just cruel. So, you know, you tune your blaster to fit your play style for then and there. So, you know, getting an extra blaster's worth of performance out of this one just by tuning it with these 2 plastic pieces is phenomenal. So that needs to be a norm. I think that needs to, you know, that needs to be the first and foremost thing people look at when they're making a Springer. Like, how are our users and our customers going to customize this blaster to fit their play style, right? If they have to open up the whole thing, is it really going to benefit them? Or can they just open up the back half of it, you know, and pull out the spring and put a new spring in, or pull out the pusher and, you know, or the spring guide or whatever you call it, and put spacers in? I don't know. I'm kind of curious. So things I would change. There are a couple. Not in love with the pump grip. It feels a little small, right? My pinky tends to kind of fall off of it, and I sometimes will hold it like this, which is super weird. But I love the fact that my pointer finger fits right on top here. I just wish this was just a little bit longer. The benefit to having this blaster, and another thing that I should have put under the features I enjoyed, is the amount of Picatinny rail underneath this this handle, this priming handle. You get a full 2.5 inches of real estate, so you can move, you know, your vertical grip forward or backwards 2.5 inches, depending on your arm length, depending on where you want it to sit, depending on what type of pump grip it is. There's a lot of modularity, a lot of customization right there in just that 2.5 inches. The other thing that I would change is I'm not a fan of this threaded barrel. I'm really not. I like the friction fit version that the Nexus Pro provides, that the Max Striker provide. I got some barrels that I enjoy using, some SCAR barrels that I enjoy using, and I wish I could use it on these. I can't. It's just not humanly possible. The one thing about upgrading, though, and one of the things that I will be starting to design here shortly, is a replacement for this kind of lug nut. Because if you look at it, and I'll point it right here, if you look at the barrel, you can see the green aqua color barrel. There is metal barrel sticking out past the white shroud, but it's covered by this lug nut. Once I get this opened, I think the problem that I'm going to run into is if I develop something that's kind of cuts this off so that the actual barrel is exposed, I think this lug nut's actually keeping the barrel from sliding forward. So that's going to be a feature that I'm going to have. That's going to create an issue that I'm going to have to make a feature for to keep that barrel from moving forward. Whether that's, you know, a really tight seal up here or a tight seal right here on that printed part. So I'm thinking of reprinting something here to kind of make this whole piece like deleted and flush, just so that the metal barrel is sticking out, so you can friction fit worker muzzles on SCAR barrels that have like kind of the tightening nut or whatever the case may be. There's one coming soon. I'm very excited, so you'll see. That's one thing I'm not a big fan of, and I know Out of Darts has already designed a SCAR barrel to fit this, and that's fantastic. They make phenomenal stuff. Absolutely, go buy one. If that's your jam, go for it. Because fitting a SCAR barrel on here that you already have is not going to work. So that's the unfortunate thing. I'm not sure why they want that. Who knows? Maybe they're coming out with their own. The other thing that I am not a fan of is obviously this air seal. That was like we already talked about it at length. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. That was something that I was not impressed with and something that needs addressed in an upgrade video. We will definitely do that. At the very, very least, that will be done. And the other, this is a minor complaint, and I don't even know if it should be a complaint because I haven't used it yet, but this stock piece right here, this loop for where you're supposed to make you're supposed to use some type of attachment to give it the ability to be a sling point. I wish this was a little bit more reinforced. As of right now, you do have 2 screws here and here, but you just have this bit of plastic that you're supposed to slip your kind of Velcro or fabric through that has a metal hook where you can use a single point or a dual point sling. I wish this was a metal insert that was protruding out through the plastic shell that was secured by 1, 2, maybe 3 screws, a plate with a D-ring or whatever the case would be. I just be aware. I think this can be something that could have been a little bit, give a little bit more design choice to, just to reinforce that just a little bit more. But yeah, because I think as far as like a point of failure, I could see that if you're using if you're using it religiously, that could be a possible issue. Again, I don't want to say that it's a feature that I want changed, but it's a feature that I want to point out. All right, so the last part of the video, the fun part, is where do I see myself using this blaster? First and foremost, with how quiet this thing is, like, right? Super quiet on the prime, and it's super quiet when it fires. But I want to go with a sidearm that's super quiet. It's really easy to say this plus a Nightingale, right? Nightingale, super responsive, super pinpoint accurate, high performer, small package, loud as hell. So if you're trying to be a silent, long range sniper class, probably gonna go with like a hammer shot, right? 7, get yourself the upgraded cylinder with the 7 darts, worker spring upgrade, give yourself a few extra feet per second, get yourself a holster. So I would say hammer shot would be a primary. Secondary, with this being primary. 2 spacers, maybe 1.5 spacers would probably be my go-to, depending on the performance outcome. I'm assuming that's going to outperform the 1 spacer and give you that extra bump. Scar barrel for sure, reflex sight for sure, maybe even like a scope with a little bit of zoom, because this thing can reach out and touch people from a long distance away. And then that hammer shot. If you're going long range and kind of like arena style where quiet isn't the go-to, like people know that there's 4 people on a team and we've already killed 3 of them. There's somebody else out there. Nightingale. I mean, it's hard not to say go with the Nightingale. It's just so quick, it's so responsive. It's loud, but if you're only taking down 4 people, 5 people on a team, you can't, if someone sneaks up on you, being able to quick draw and peel off 4 or 5 rounds without having to worry about it. There isn't a rev trigger, so you don't have to worry about pre-revving. You just pull that sucker and just, the first dart might be a little low because your trigger is so fast, but the second, third, fourth, you're definitely going to be pinpointing. So it's hard to say no Nightingale, but this with the Nightingale, if you're more of a run and gun arena style long range shooter, I'd go Nightingale for sure. So anyway, guys, I know it was a long video. I'm trying to get my 2023. I'm going to try and get my videos down lower. I'm starting to cut out a lot of the range shots, so you're only going to see a few examples of me firing it. I'm still going to show you the information. I'm still going to put all the information up on the actual sheet on the Google Doc, so that's not changing. I just want to get my duration of my videos down lower so they're not quite 30 minutes long. So hopefully this video is not 30 minutes long. We went over a lot of information. And the thing is, the sad part is this one is going to be a little bit longer because normally blasters don't come with two tuning capsules. So I got to test them both. So it's going to be long. Whew, I don't know. All right. Do I recommend it without modifying? Absolutely. Absolutely do. Highly recommend. Is it going to replace my Nexus Pro? I think it's going to. I hate to say it, but I think this is going to replace my Nexus Pro. It's just so quiet. It's so reliable. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick. I'm glad I said that. People were talking about the issue, and I ran into it just a little bit with my plunger getting stuck. I ran into it one time when I was doing the FPS reading, and then one time out on the range. And it wasn't too big of an issue. So what'll happen is if you prime the blaster, pull it forward, and when it happened to me, I was using two spacers, and each time it was when I was using ember darts. I'd pull the trigger, and nothing would happen. It wouldn't fire, it wouldn't dry fire, you wouldn't hear the catch release, nothing. 100% nothing. You could prime it again, nothing. Still wouldn't fire. People were saying use the quick release here. I tried that, still wasn't getting anything. The only way I could fix it, and that was real quick, was pull off the buffer tube carefully. You've got to be careful because the blaster's primed, right? So this spring is going to be under full tension. So you want to make sure you're using your full weight to take this off nice and easy because it's going to shoot out super hard. I took this out, pulled both spacers out, put this back in, and as soon as I put this back in, it wouldn't fire, but I pull this back, prime it, push it forward, and it would shoot out that dart. Obviously, you want to be careful priming it multiple times with more magazines because you don't want to put more darts in there because you can do that. But that's how I fixed it. So it wasn't that big of a deal for me. But it's definitely worth noting is, that's definitely, as far as like a feature that needs to be looked at is why is that happening? Is two spacers too much for it? And if that's the case, then going with that 1.5 spacer, heck, even just going with one spacer is a viable option for this blaster. So by all means, definitely go for that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Really do appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all of that YouTube algorithm garbage. That helps out the channel. I appreciate it. Leave a comment down below if you're interested in this blaster, if you've already picked it up. I want to know if your air seal is as terrible as mine is. That's the one thing I want to know. So leave a comment down below, and we'll talk to you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.